It's Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Let's start the show with Lewis Tennant. Here we go. Guests and interviews that you're looking for with creators, innovators, and so much more. For all episodes and further info, verbalhighs.com is the place to go.
All right, welcome to Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs, a podcast podcasted bi-monthly from a kitchen bench in Kingston, Auckland, New Zealand. I'm Lewis, and I am the host of the show, and I'm at a point with episodes now where I'm quickly looking up where we're at numbers-wise. We're up to number 53 this week. My guest, Andrew Boak, a long chat with Andrew, a man around and about the early punk scene in New Zealand, particularly in Auckland. Speaking, well, actually, we speak a whole lot of general podcast chit chat. Some of these podcasts end up bio pieces, more pointedly. Others have a bio thread to them where we meander off into other topics, and that's what this one is, the latter. But we do get after about an hour. I think I actually say on the podcast that we're up to about 1983 in his life, but we do squeeze in a lot. We squeeze in perhaps another 20 years in the last 10-15 minutes, but yeah, a number of topics and an interesting fella to chat to. I only met him, it's only the second time I'd met him first time at his dear friend Harry the Bastard's house. First time I'd met Mr. Bastard as well. Two good fellas to know. And Andrew actually stuck around and we chatted for probably another couple of hours afterwards, which is always the sign, I reckon, of a good kōrero and a good fella to chat with. He was both. I'm going to rush this intro because our convo, as I say, was quite long. It's Waitangi Day here in New Zealand. It's lovely. It's a lovely day. I can't say I've done anything focused on the unification of New Zealand today. I've actually been down at a bar, not drinking. I did have a coffee though, speaking to the Herald, our local rag, about a pinball comp that I'm in. I got a high score on a machine in a bar as part of a brewery promotion, and 8 of us from around New Zealand go head to head this Thursday, and I could be off to something called Pinburg with a lucky friend. If I win, if it were horse racing, the odds aren't great for me, if I'm to be honest, with a couple of the other players I know who've got through, but it's pinball and physics, and the mood of the day means it can go far more anywhere and everywhere results-wise than something like a more linear video game. So, wish me luck, people, please. Listeners, send me vibes. Some TV I've been enjoying. I went off watching a lot of TV and cinema for a while. I don't know why. Just, ebbs and flows of what we feel like doing in life. But the second series of Better Things, amazing. That's not Stranger Things. That's Better Things. The Pamela Anderson show. Stunning television. I think I had a few tearsies there for a couple of eps, which is unusual for TV. Latest series of The Detectorists is very good as well, or just Detectorists, sort of quirky, lovely shot, lovely kind of executed, this time British show about 2 metal detectors, with so much more. Drink Champs is a great podcast if you're into your hip-hop. It's Noriega with a whole table of booze speaking to absolute hip-hop. Is luminaries the word? OGs, people like Snoop Dogg are on it, KRS-One, etc. Worth a look. You can watch it on YouTube or listen. Paddington 2, delightful film. Liked Paddington. Went to the second one on the big screen. Didn't regret that. A sequel. Who would have thought? Fantastic. And lastly, it's been on a lot of the American podcasts because they've been doing promo for it, but The Disaster Artist is a great film as well. So there you go. I haven't done some recommendations in a while. Hey, let's get to the podcast. The intro was far too long last week. Please like the show, Verbal Highs podcast on Facebook, Verbal Highs on Twitter. Please leave a comment on iTunes if you would, or at least a rating if you go through if you get your podcast from there. But other than that, here's Mr. Boak. By the way, he's back from San Fran running a show called Punk It Up 2018. And if you hear this before Saturday, 17th of February, and you live in Auckland, go along. Proud Scum, No Tag, the Johnny's Flesh Device, Wolfpack from Australia, Bank Robbers Mishap, and the Rocket Jocks. It's at the King's Arms, which is a bar that will be no more very shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Boak.
This is Dr. Tannen's Verbal Highs.
But, I'm assuming you want a bit of a level, right? Yeah, that's looking good.
Yeah, it's looking...
Okay, and now I might get a bit excited and go like this, right? But...
I'm excited.
time,
And if I get excited, if I do one of my ha-ha laughs, then we should be fine.
Okay.
And I don't edit this, so that's actually probably made the... Well, it might have made... I might take the beginning bit off.
So I've got to make sure I don't go,
I do those as well. Podcasting, the internet, the digital era, the brave new world, all those broadcasting rules we knew are broken.
It's very true, right? The first of all, it's because there's more devices to receive or to listen with, right? And then secondly is, in essence, it's radio waves. I guess in most cases, most people are listening on a wireless device that's wireless, so there is radio waves involved at some stage, right? But
that's right, I guess.
Yeah.
It's all transmission and reception at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's also, but the thing about podcasts is you turn it off and turn it on, and you don't have to be in front of your radio at a particular time. Yeah. So there's and convenience is something that humans like.
And all the best apps that I run them through now, I listen to them through now, they remember where you are and all the rest of it. They're great, man. Are you actually
exactly.
It's okay if you're not, but are you a big podcast listener? A lot of my guests haven't even heard.
I do.
Many.
What I tend to do is when I'm trying to find out some information on something, I'll if there's a podcast, I'll have a listen to it, or if there's a program that I wanted to listen to that I wasn't able to because I was doing something else, I love the luxury of being able to go back and do it.
Yeah.
And then there's, I have a few friends that do some stuff, mainly just like kind of mix shows and so on, and I trust their judgment in music, so I'll go and have a listen and rather than live radio, right, or live streaming, whatever, I can go back and check and say, this dude's like, oh, that's an interesting track. I'll have to find out where he got that from. And the other thing with podcasts as well is there's potentially text with it. I mean, even live streaming, pretty much every radio station you listen to now that's got live streaming has a now playing, and it's got the artist and the title, right?
Even on the cheapest, radio that goes in the car now, it tells you all of that, right?
Yeah, well, that too, yep.
So is there still good, what will I call it? Is there still good non-vanilla radio in San Fran? I mean radio, like in your car, tune into a station. Is there like a BFM or equivalent over there? Or?
Yeah, there's a couple of college stations.
Campus radio?
Yeah. There's a couple of college stations who generally do that kind of crazy out there music and so on. Yeah. But most of the radio is either sports radio, talk radio, or top 40 radio but there's genre ilks. There's the urban station, as they call it, that's just going to play pretty much hip hop all the time, and then there's the country station, which is going to play the Garth Brooksy new country stuff, right? So and so on. So
minus the country, it sounds pretty much like Auckland's radio market these days.
I would say, yeah, but we don't have a kind of a George or something that's actually like or bass or whoever. I'm sorry, I'm not totally up on it, right? Who dance music? That's one thing you don't have. Yeah, right. Is more of a dance music station. There's there's the rock stations. There's like I say, the top 40. There's the groovy top 40 or the commercial hip hoppy stuff. Then there's the harder hip hop stuff. But there's no real like dance music station at all, right?
That's interesting because like that really infiltrated, I guess, what our equivalent campus radio, student radio here, right? Because a lot of the stations still carry through with strong kind of dance or electronic shows.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get some of that on the college stations there, but really it's not. It's more of a. It's not really radio thing, right? And again, I always find Auckland, in comparison, to be very different radio-wise on the amount of stations there are per head of population, and if you think that if the ecosystem, the radio ecosystem, has to survive from advertising monies and so on, the logic is there's only X amount of dollars for X amount of head of population.
Yeah.
And if the Bay Area is about 5 million people, and yet Auckland is only, 1.5 million, say, right? Okay. Yeah. That's a much smaller amount of dollars being generated to go around to be shared amongst stations. But yet, San Francisco, or the Bay Area, so when I say the Bay Area, I'm meaning San Francisco, San Jose, Oakland, Berkeley, that kind of, thing, they have about the same or less actual broadcasting stations than what Auckland does. Yeah. So it's interesting to see that, that Auckland seems to be able to survive, or radio stations seem to be able to make enough money to be able to, pay people to do it and so on, and survive and pay their rents and pay their fees and so on, and buy equipment, whilst being still quite a niche programming.
Quick history lesson there. It's probably not so niche now, but yeah, you've got your little low powers like bass and so on, and then George has been snapped up by one of the two big companies. You're right. We actually have. I think we've got the most stations per capita of any city in the world. But in the 90s, in the late 80s, when they basically deregulated and released all those frequencies to the free market, there were actually all these little indie owner-operators, I don't know whether you were here in the 90s, but what happened was exactly what you're saying, is none of them could survive because none of them could grab enough advertising dollar.
Right.
So now the duopoly we've got is actually so we have two big companies that own all the stations now. So it's actually rather than regulation by the government now, it's regulation by two big corporations. So you've got all these kind of one station mirrors the other, and it's actually just little pockets of exactly what you're talking about, commercial, very nothing outside the limits of these very definite pockets.
Yes, it's definitely safe radio.
So you might say hip hop, right? R&B on Mayan flavour, but it's one particular very safe kind of commercial strand.
Absolutely. It's radio with a condom on for sure, right? Yeah, right. But
hey, I love this. We've already gone completely off any of the points I have on my list. So before I'm sure I've given people on this podcast a radio lesson before. So you've just been at the Super Bowl. We haven't been at the Super Bowl. You've been at it's an Auckland screening.
Yes.
Is that an American stateside found love?
Or phenomenal, right?
Being a man who lives in San Fran now.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, as a New Zealander, I'm into my sports. And you get what you get interested in what you have at your fingertips. And there's a little bit of rugby in America, but and most of it's New Zealanders playing anyway. So whatever. Yeah. But there's no cricket at all. Not even on the sports channels on TV. You have to basically buy a subscription to either an Indian or a Pakistani channel to get cricket, but then you get plenty of it, right? So it's not like it's not available. It's just not in the general mainstream at all.
So yes, this sounds like a loss on your part. You're a cricket guy, or you don't strike me as a cricket guy.
No, well, no, I don't mind sitting down with a cold chili bin full of beverages and spending a day in the sun. That's kind of fun. And speaking of podcasts, I can stream it. I can stream New Zealand versus Pakistan T20 from the other night from wherever they were playing in Wellington or whatever, and I can stream that on my phone while I'm sitting outside my rehearsal room in San Francisco. So go figure, right? And then but then you also have to try and explain to an American about cricket, which, as someone said one time, you can never do that to an American because you cannot explain a game that goes for 5 days and can still end in a draw, right? So
I'm woefully inadequate on most sport fronts. I watch the World Cup football every 3 or 4 years.
Right.
I watch a heavyweight boxing fight because I watched When We Were Kings in '99 and sussed that all out. But even that's a dated concept now, isn't it? Because MMA's taken over. Mm-hmm. But the best description I had of cricket from a friend who I flattered with in Melbourne, who would sit there for most of those 4 days, was it was like watching live action chess. Can you?
Well, that's it. That's okay. So that's very interesting because today, watching the Super Bowl, right, it was described as live chess.
Right. By Harry.
By Harry, because we're talking about the offense and the defense. And there's this 30 seconds or so before the offensive team is going to snap the ball and make their next play. Yeah. And they're deciding whether they're going to do a running play or a pass play or what they're going to, or a super tricky play or whatever. And so they're putting personnel on the field, right? To that's goes with that play, and then the defense is looking at that, and then they're swapping out their defensive guys depending on what the offensive guys are doing. Then they're trying to, as they line up, trying to work out what kind of play they're going to do, right? All of this is in within 30 seconds.
Yeah, right.
Right, and that's basically what it is. It's this decision making, snap second decision making, but you still at least
strategy. That's the word we're looking for. Strategy.
Yes, indeed,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So. But the thing is that the NFL in America is the big sport. Baseball's about next. Then you have basketball, and then you have ice hockey.
Yeah.
But those four are pretty strong, and definitely for football and baseball and basketball, you follow your local team, right?
Yeah.
So in the wintertime it's football, in the summertime it's baseball, and basketball kind of fits in between They start about halfway through winter and they finish about halfway through summer. So, in fact, driving up here today, I was behind a Jaguar station wagon, right? Sorry, Jaguar. I've got to say Jaguar in America, Jaguar here, right? I've got to change my
just be
my
you,
words,
bro.
right?
Just be you.
Okay. Apologize in advance if you don't understand me, right? And I mix them up now that I'm here, right? But anyway, there was a station wagon with a great big Golden State Warriors logo sticker on the back of it, and that's our local team in San Francisco. So it's interesting, it's oh wow, that's cool, and I thought it was great, so I had to get my iPhone out and take a photo.
Obscure in Auckland, right?
And probably tonight I'll post it on Facebook saying hey, see, even the Golden State Warriors get over here, right? And all my friends will like it.
So
and,
So where are they even in the league? Your team, because I like that.
Okay, the Golden State Warriors are the current champions.
Oh, did they win today?
Well, no. Okay, Golden State Warriors
Oh
basketball.
goodness.
Okay, so today was football.
Yeah, I know that.
And San Francisco's football team is the 49ers, who were phenomenal back in the 80s, right? And not so bad, on and off in the 90s, and okay in the 90s, okay in the 2000s, but kind of got worse and worse and worse, and they've been terrible for quite a while now. But they came back this current season that just obviously ended today with the Super Bowl, and they won quite a few more than what people thought they would. So maybe they're rebuilding and so on. And it's the nature of how the leagues work is that they have a salary cap, so you just can't win. Theoretically, you can't win by just buying all the good players.
Yeah.
Right? There's a bit of control there. And then secondly, if you the draft each year to get the good players that are coming out of the colleges is based on, you get a higher draft pick, the worse your record is. So theoretically, the good players are being given to the bad teams on a yearly basis, and slowly but surely it all changes round, right? So
did you have your local football team in the Super Bowl today? No,
not at all. Okay. No, in fact, I did the two teams playing the Super Bowl today. I really didn't care for either of them.
So you just enjoyed the ribs.
Definitely enjoyed the ribs, right? Most of it is really about the whole. It's massive
ritual. It's a
massive ritual.
It is.
Massive ritual in America.
Even the advertising done well in those slots is an art form, isn't it?
That's the thing.
It's just a big media.
A 30-second advert played on TV in the Super Bowl.
Spot for any TV advertising.
Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 million
globally.
Yeah. And we even tried hard to see if we could get an American stream just so we could see the adverts, because the New Zealand one has the New Zealand stream. They're showing the game.
But, we don't know what the ads were today.
No, and sometimes there's political statements, and sometimes there's they said that on TV, and so I'm going to have to go back and they all come up get put on YouTube pretty much after the game, and
so I would have liked to have been. So we're talking about Harry the Bastard and the ribs. So I would have loved to have been in the room with Harry and the Justin Timberlake and Prince hologram. How was that performance? Did they show that?
Yeah, we saw that and we kind of watched it, and I mean, again, it's like yes, it's cheesy. But no, they were doing. He's
a gifted performer.
Oh, absolutely. There's no two ways about that. You got to remember that he was the one that had the Janet Jackson thing the Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction, as they called it in the end. And so I said to Harry, "Oh, interesting. They invited him back, right? I guess that after 10 years, all wounds will heal after a few years.
The kids won't remember that,
right? Yeah, exactly. And then, but the thing was, the Super Bowl was being held in Minneapolis, so there was their token. A thing to
Prince,
to be able to do it, right?
Yeah.
So and maybe a bit cheesy and whatever, but it looked pretty good. And
That's what I say.
It's a hologram.
Was it?
Right?
I mean, I'm not a hologram expert. Was it? I mean, as two
was-
laymen of holograms sitting at the table, was it? Did it seem a respectable hologram for the general public?
Yes. Okay. I mean, it was like obviously a computer generated graphic that was using lasers or whatever, like hanging in the air, right above where Justin Timberlake was performing, and it was moving and looked like it was singing the words. So
Nice.
Yeah.
They didn't jumping jack over each other. I better sort of. I should probably say who you are. I think we're about 15 minutes in. I'm with Andrew. It's Boak, isn't it?
Yep,
I
that's
hate
right.
if it was Boak or something. It'd be terrible. It's had a life in music. I've stolen this bit of copy from somewhere else. This time on guitar with no tag, leading on to a varied career. Worked at Radio B before it became BFM. That's a long time ago.
Yes, it is. Yes. I have some miles under my belt.
As an Auckland Uni student, one of the first local DJs to cross over into commercial radio, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in radio in a little while. And No Tag took off overseas, doing the London route, I believe.
Someone told us the streets were paved with gold,
Yeah.
so we went to check it out, and unfortunately they weren't. But
You're actually around the same time as Benny Staples.
yes, absolutely. We knew Benny well, and
Yeah.
Russell Brown was over there around about that time, and obviously Harry, and so.
And he's Andrew has this copy, as I say. It was a great article actually. New Zealand musicians continue to indulge his passion, working and playing first in the London scene, as just discussed, and subsequently in San Fran, where you live now.
Yeah.
So for listeners, that probably contextualises a whole bunch of stuff we've been talking about. Been living there the last few decades. How long? Have you been there since the 90s, early mid-90s?
Yes, I got there about 1990. So I've actually lived in San Francisco more than I've lived in New Zealand, which
That's always a
is kind of
freaky
weird.
feeling, right?
It is, yeah. It's like, but I'm a New Zealander. It's like, but I don't think one of the reasons I love San Francisco is because it's the same freaking latitude the other side of the equator. So it's pretty much the same geography. It's pretty much the same flora. It's pretty much the same climate from the amount of rainfall, the amount of sunshine, and that kind of thing. It's way less humid than this place, right? But there's a lot of similarity there, and so to me, environment kind of creates people, right?
Yeah.
And then other than maybe it's got a few more TV channels, it definitely had more TV channels than when I left New Zealand, which was 3, right? And
I would have thought I thought we would have left while it was still 2. So.
No. Just bought on TV3. I think.
89,
right? No, in fact, no, I did not see it. It was still 2. Yes, I left in 86, right. But 3 was on the boil then. But they've got funny accents, but that's really about it. It's
funny you say the geographical thing. I agree with the rest, and the geographical. I mean, I've not been there, obviously on the cards, but it actually looks a lot like Wellington to me rather than Auckland.
It is definitely Wellington from its like
I've got the opening credits to Full House. That's what I've got.
Well, with the windy roads and the hills and so on,
and
right?
the wooden houses.
Right,
don't forget the wooden houses.
Plenty of Victorian type built wooden houses and so on.
Yeah.
But the thing is that environment is comfortable to me, right?
Oh, it's a beautiful looking city.
So I mean, I remember when I went to London and it would be like October and it was still a bit sunny outside, and I'd walk up the road and I'd walk out the door in just t-shirt and jeans.
Yeah.
And by the time I nearly got up to the train station, to the tube station, it'd be like, I need to go back and get a jacket. It's freezing, right?
Yeah.
So
you confuse the 50 weeks of London where you need that with the 2 weeks
exactly.
that you don't.
Right, yeah. Well, like the human being sees sun, thinks warm, right? But it's not, right? So just to having that, it's just, to me, I believe that's the comfort. Why I don't mind living in San Francisco per se. Plus, you can add in the fact that I don't live in America. I live in San Francisco, from its just the general social flavor of San Francisco, right? And I have visa, green card, that kind of stuff. So I'm not like I can get any job I can apply for any job I want. I could even get unemployment for if I needed and things like that. Really, the only thing I can't do at the moment is vote. But I'd much rather remain a New Zealander and do everything else but vote. It annoys me that I can't vote because I'm a real strong believer that everyone should have the right to vote within the environment they live in, specifically if they pay taxes.
I was just going to say, and especially with the whole, with all the values of the American system, one of them obviously being the dollar.
Right.
I agree that even from a most hard-nosed American perspective, if you're over there making money and not committing crime,
and you're paying taxes.
I'm saying this from the perspective, the crime thing. I'm saying,
yeah. No, I agree.
The hard-nosed perspective,
I agree totally.
It's give the man a vote.
Right, and more importantly to me, and I even wrote a speech about this once because I went back to school and did a small computer networking degree, but you had to do a speech class and a few other things, a public speaking class thing, and I wrote the speech about that because, there was this thing called the Boston Tea Party. There was this thing called the American Revolution, basically, right? Or and the Declaration of Independence, and all of that came about because they didn't like the fact that England were taxing them and they didn't have a voice in Parliament.
Yeah.
So what difference is it if I'm getting taxed but I'm not allowed to vote for who I have in Parliament?
Yeah.
Right. So to me, it's kind of hypocritical. And then when you dig deeper. The Washington, D.C., it's a district, not a state.
Right.
So they don't have senators.
Yeah.
So they can't do that. And it wasn't until 1963 that they were even allowed to vote for president. So
funny, another thing as an aside you've made me realise, especially with the flavour and the narrative of the current government, it's that whole, other attitude to foreigners, isn't it? Because even though you're not like...
well, I am a white Anglo-Saxon,
no,
so that kind of really helps
on my
a
brief,
lot.
I was going to say, but you are still
yes,
ever reminded at election time that you are an alien.
Absolutely, and that's kind of one of the annoyances that I can't vote, right?
Yeah.
As I should, but it's like at the same time, what you're seeing in America right now with the current... I'll call it regime because that's what it kind of is, right? Okay, or what you're hearing is propaganda, right? There is this whole thing about, he's appealing to his base, right? Well, his base is about 20% of the population at best, right?
Was it maybe it's...
And the thing is that people don't realize that the all of the propaganda avenues that have been used by all parties and other countries to try and influence the thought process of the American public has worked in a lot of ways. And so consequently, not only is it incorrect stuff that people are believing, it's also concepts of Trump's got a great big base of Nazi white guys, right? Okay. It's not really true.
No.
Yes, most of his base is Nazi white guys. Yes, he's got a few of them, but they're not 50% of the country.
Yeah, but I'd say probably not most. I hear you there. I'd say there's a lot of people who, in conversation, it's one of those things that what you do in the ballot box, you don't actually have to tell someone. So there'd be plenty of people. There'd probably be people that surprise through work or whatever that voted Trump, but they're not going to tell you.
Oh no, I understand that, and I don't really want them to.
Yeah.
and there's definitely there was that whole definite thing of they people voted for him because they thought he'd shake the place up, and unfortunately he has shaken the place up, but he's shaken it up the wrong way that they would have liked, right? And a lot of this, and then there's all this stuff still being investigated. Hopefully we'll all be around and there won't be a nuclear war to kill us before we actually find out what does go down. And trust me, Americans are as strong as what we are as Kiwis to this is our country and you do not screw with it. You do not fuck with our country. I am a patriot, kind of thing, and they're going to get to the bottom of it,
Yeah.
right? And there's no amount of propaganda, dirty dealings, craziness, or whatever that's going to lose that from what they created. They were very, very smart. The founding fathers were very, very smart in the way that they created government, and the three branches, right? And the Justice Department is there to make sure that the houses don't screw up, or the executive branch, being the White House, don't get away with murder. So they all are checking on each other.
Yeah.
But there's FBI people and CIA people that are sworn to country.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that Trump's their boss,
Well, look,
or such and such is their boss. They're sworn to the country. You know what I mean? Right?
Even in, I'll tell you. Actually, I'll make this statement, then move on to a positive. I think that's come from all of this with media. Even the mainstream media on the other side of the world, which is here, are covering that stuff as you've described it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's very uncommon to go away from the prevailing narrative of the government of the largest, the most powerful Western nation in the world.
Absolutely.
But I actually feel like we're hearing stuff from the perspective of, what's actually going on with the FBI versus Trump and so on. But I was going to say the positive from that is, armchair observation, although admittedly I kind of teach and study media a bit as well, though, is I think it's actually changing. And I think there's positives to come from all of this, as you say, as long as the world isn't nuked.
Yeah.
And one of the positives I see is I just feel like the media's got a bit more... Is savvy the right word? I was
going to say savvy is the thing, or they're wary of...
People are peering, this is an analytical term, people are peering through the bullshit cracks more now in the New Zealand media, it feels like, than they were, a few years ago. We've gone from sort of quite a dip in reportage here to it feels like the people are like, it's waking up the world in a lot of ways. To don't believe the prevailing narrative.
Yeah, well, it's almost down to, we used to make a joke, it must be true because it's on the internet, right? Or or it must be true because a policeman told me.
It's in the Herald.
Right? Yeah, it must be true because a policeman told me. Right? It's like there is, I believe part of the reason that I still enjoy life quite a lot is because to me everything is juxtaposed, right? Yeah. Okay, you cannot have good people without assholes.
Yeah.
You cannot have good times without bad times.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing. You can't have a true media without a false media as well. And it's up to you to decide what you believe, and you've got to, and over a period of time, but it's a long time, right? These things change and get caught. This is the thing. It's the Russian investigation is not going to happen overnight, right? The Labour Party coming into New Zealand is not going to fix everything overnight, right? And they might have to do some things like raise taxes for a bit. It's like all these things. We're very much a generation like the podcasts where we can just click on the part we want to start on, right? We've grown into this generation of being able to get things instantly, instant, and patience has kind of gone out the window for people, right? And so when it's something that's really pissing them off, which is their political environment, right? They can get very, well, let's speed up this process for our win by lying a little bit, right? Right?
But you can't,
or manipulating the media,
right? But
right?
You can't speed up process with something that is so ingrained in so many, years deep as the American system. You're right. It's like if change is going to happen, you got to wait for it to happen slowly and veer off that way. It can't. You can't,
absolutely.
Especially with all the stakeholders from all different sides. Hey, listen, I came here to talk to you about you and music, and we're going to do another politics podcast.
Well, if maybe you'll have to do part 1 and part 2, right? Yeah. But it is important. It is important because let's segue right into this, right? Music, specifically punk, but all other forms of music like NWA, fuck the police, right? You know what I mean? Things like that. It is a massive vehicle for information projection to people, right?
Opinion and perspective projection.
Yes, exactly, right.
Reality lived projection.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so that's why music is so important, right? And to me is also like why I still enjoy doing the punk ethic because we like one of my bands in San Francisco, Blank Spots, right, has a song called "Not My President," right? And that came about because of Trump. We have this great photo of a Trump over the top of a American flag with our logo on it, right? And it's like. This is the thing, I mean, Jello Biafra is still going on, but I see Jello all the time, and he'll make jokes about, I told you Trump was going to do this. I mean, it's just all these people.
Rollins is still spreading his word,
Yeah. I mean, it's like, how do you get to people, specifically people that aren't as stuck in their way, and they're in this like 20 to 40 or 50-year-old, they're still developing their ideas,
small audience at a time.
But it's through their Facebook, it's through their New Zealand Heralds, it's through their whatever, but it's also through when they go and they listen to poetry or lyrics, or they read a novel, or they read a book that's actually factual or whatever. There's so many different vehicles to get to people, and it is. I guess it's information dispersing. How do you distribute it out to the people, right? And what's happened is, going back to the Trump thing, is some people worked out a really great way to disperse this information in a manner that would be eaten up by humans, with the humans not realizing that they were being taken.
Yeah.
Right, and that's our good old Facebook, social media, podcast, whatever, right?
And the power of
and Twitter and so on.
The power of robotic algorithms that often have good intentions but are ending up, they're... Yeah. Where did you grow up?
Me?
Yeah, where'd you grow up? Okay, yes. You grew up in Auckland, right?
I grew up in Auckland. I grew up in Takapuna, which is where I'm staying here. I'm actually sleeping in my old kid's bed at the moment, so my feet are hanging off the edge, right? And no, it's fine. It's great. It's like, I do these trips pretty much on the cheap, because it's not like I make a whole bunch of money out of, doing these punk it up shows, right? And it's not like I'm flying across first class, right? Yes, you can make some money out of doing this, but you're not going to be super rich unless you've been doing it for a long while and you happen to get decent records out. And so it's a long process. That's the other thing. Like when you play music, if you don't have patience, forget about it. Right? Yeah. Okay. I try and tell people that it's like, if you keep doing it. I mean, I have been doing it now. I've been playing guitar now for over 30 years, and I know that I'm a much better guitarist than what I was 30 years ago, right? But I'm probably better than what I...
You'd hope so.
Oh, yeah, but I think I'm even better than what I thought I might have been 30 years ago because I just keep doing it, right? Right? And if it's a passion that you love... I mean, the other reason I do it is because, the endorphins is what stops me from going out and killing people. Right. Okay. So my music I create is actually good for society. Right. Yeah. Okay. It saves a spot for someone else on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. Right. But
you think you're that you've got that level of energy in you?
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. Right.
I'm glad we hit it off when we met. Last year or whenever it was. Then.
Yeah. No. That was it. Right. Well, no. I mean, I'm a believer in not killing people too much, but my anger can come out very, very fast if I don't have a way of getting rid of aggression and anger. And the way I do is that if I can plug a Les Paul into a Marshall and turn it up loud and play for 5 minutes, I get nice and mellow again.
So are you still someone like after decades on the planet prone to actual sort of rage, anger, or?
Well, rage to the point where I might punch a wall, but I'm not necessarily going to punch someone.
Oh, right? I don't think I would for a second.
But no, I'm not really. I'm actually I'm way more relaxed. But a lot of that is because I know I've got my music. I play in 2 bands in San Francisco, and that probably is because I can't just do one band. I have 2. I have to have 2 because whatever. But growing up on the shore, right? Okay.
Yeah. So
I grew up on the shore.
Your legs are hanging off the bed. So that's a unicorn in itself. The family home's still intact. Not many people I speak to on the podcast have that. You're lucky, man. So are both your folks still there, or?
No, my dad passed away 3 years ago. 3 years ago, he had a stroke, but he hung on for a year because he was a real tough bastard,
you were
right?
Close?
Right? Oh, yeah, pretty much. Right. And I came over here. This is kind of how the whole punk it up thing comes from my dad having a stroke, because I came over when he first had a stroke, and at the time I was doing project work for where I work, which is I can say I work at Apple.
I wasn't
can't
going to
tell
say
you much
because you told me not to.
Yeah. I mean, right. But I was doing project work, so I basically would work for about 3 months, and then I'd have a couple of months off. So I had space. It wasn't that I had to run back to work. And so I kind of, hung out and just to see how my dad was doing. Was he going to make it or not? He had originally was given 24 hours to live when he had the stroke.
Shit, so you just jumped on a plane, man.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Jumped on a plane, right? And but while I was over here, it was Kev in Mackenview was doing a Strummer Day at the King's Arms, a Strummerville thing, and I had about a year before that played in San Francisco at the same exact type thing, the Strummer Day thing, with my band Skin Effect. Doing that there, so I knew all these Clash songs. So, and then I found out about another Clash covers band called Clampdown that Dave, what's his name, plays with Chin Wigmore now. He was in the City Newton Bombers, who just played here as well. He had a Clash band and so on, and I managed to get hold of Seamus, the guitarist, and he was up for it. And then we tracked down a drummer and so on, and then I needed a bass player. And we were thinking about Chris Orange, but Dom didn't have his phone number, but Jed would. So I called Jed. Hey, how's it going, mate? Look, I'm doing this. I'm here with my dad's had a stroke. Blah 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 blah. Right? Do you know Chris Orange? Because we're thinking of a bass player. And Jed said, "Screw that, I'll do this." Right? Right? Because apparently
the perfect storm.
Yeah, yeah. And Jed and I get on really really well. He's a phenomenal, brilliant, creative person. And so we went and did this thing, and then. The first Punk It Up in 2015 was based on I'd been trying to get the No Tag guys to reform to do a gig for years and years and years and years and years, and every time one of them would say no or whatever, right? And obviously, it's not. I would never want ever to represent No Tag without the original members, assuming we're all alive. Or even then, if one of them dies, that's it. You're not going to see No Tag again, right?
Yeah.
But and that came together. So I've got Bank Robbers. We can do some punk covers. I've got No Tag. All right, we'll get a couple of other bands, right? And we did the first Punk It Up, right? So in essence, that's where, that's the 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah.
The reason I'm playing at Punk It Up in a couple of weeks, right? Is because my dad had a stroke.
Right.
Right.
And so you're not coming back that often before that?
No, not really, because,
Wow.
it's like, well, first of all, there weren't that many direct flights, so thank you, Air New Zealand, to make, to start doing that, and then suddenly all the competition came in, and they started doing it because they saw Air New Zealand was making bank, right?
Yeah. Yeah, right. So there's a market for how many flights a week from San Fran to Auckland?
Well, Air New Zealand flies direct 7 days a week.
To San Fran?
Yes.
Every day?
Yes.
Wow.
United, I think, is 5 of 7, right? Hawaiian Air does
How do we have a market for that
Hawaiian...
many people going from New Zealand to San Fran?
Do you want to know why?
I do. That's why I asked.
Okay. Very good point. Yes, stating the obvious, right? No, it's not just the people, it's the freight.
Oh, of course. Right.
When this started, my wife Kathy was very smart. She said, "Hey, you notice there's more New Zealand butter in all the markets we go to now?
Yeah.
Do you notice there's more, New Zealand?
right.
Because they can use the freight.
So it's the underneath of the plane. That would explain, like, the last time I came back from
It's
LA.
probably where this Mexican Coke I'm drinking came from.
Last time I came back
right?
from LA, or the only time I've come back from LA, truth be told, I looked around the plane, I was like, how can this fucking thing even justify being in the air? But you've just answered quite an obvious answer too, now I think about it, yeah.
Well, that said, my plane was on a Wednesday night from San Francisco direct, and there's no majorly big event I know of that anyone was coming over for here in New Zealand on the Wednesday night.
Watch the Super Bowl on Duke, maybe?
Yeah, exactly, right. And it was packed. I had 13 and a half hours in cattle class, right?
Yeah.
But I'm doing it on the cheap. I did it on miles, right? I'm not, so because I'm just not making that much money out of this gig because I'm not in it to make money. I'm in it to cover my, everybody's, effort. I like to pay people a reasonable amount of money for their effort, right?
Yeah.
But I like to it's a labour of love per se. Yes, I do make some money if we sell through, which we haven't yet. So at the moment,
where are we? The King's
right?
Arms?
Yeah, King's Arms, right?
Well, that's kind of cool. But you're coming back to see the end of a historic venue as well.
Well, that was the other thing. I managed to be able to get through being being a good promoter last time and working through the noise complaint thing that they had, and then getting on well with Maureen because of that, and so on, and then her saying, well, we'd like to see if we could fit you in if you need to do it, and then Jonathan Jamrag had a great time jumping up with Band Crobbers to do I Am a Rabbit, so he's like, well, maybe we could do a Proud Scum, and then there was a couple of other people, and I'm like, okay, I'll do it again, right? Nice. So yeah, I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for the King's Arms, having that venue, because I know that venue because that's where we've done it before. The people at the King's Arms are great for accommodating my control freak, where I'm like, I need this. So that's
right? Good of a mark of a good promoter, though. You want to put on a show that doesn't have any leaky holes.
Yeah, well, there's that side of it as well from the production perspective, but also I want to have I want to give the punters something for their money that's more than just, oh, here's a bunch of bands on stage.
Yeah.
Right, so we try and do things like, we have like a couple of informational booths there, because, punks are political, so the Auckland Poverty people are going to be there, I believe, and also
a lot of that is
there's a humane society, I think, that has volunteers for animal rescue and so on, and they're going to have a little dog apparently that's going to go around with a little tip jar and so on. And then I have a couple of other guys that are selling
with little earmuffs on,
Well, no, I think they're going to just be in the front bar, right? Because that was my first concern, was like, well, you realise there's going to be some like loud decibels, but they said it was okay apparently. And then there's a couple of other guys selling like rare 7 inches from Death Destructor Band or whatever from outer Norwegia, right?
Cool.
So.
So school, man. So school on the North Shore, is that where you would have been at high school in the late 70s, mid 70s?
Late 70s, it would have been. Mid 70s, late 70s, and that's when punk rock came along, right? I'm early 50s.
Early 50s, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I just because a lot of your boffin who listens to these things likes to place their music history. So I think if you get the age and the school years and the da-da-da year right, everyone can follow it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, there was the thing. I was at school. I was a young teenager of age 15 or 16, and when punk rock was happening, and I had a cousin who had been living in London because his dad was in the army, and he was a colonel in the army, and he was like the aide-de-camp in London, England, on behalf of the New Zealand Army. But they were there, and they came back one time. They flew back from London. They lived in Wellington, but because he was based government-wise. But they stopped in Auckland, and he had these 7 inches. He had Holidays in the Sun by the Sex Pistols, and he had In the City by the Jam. Yeah. And I think he had a New Rose by The Damned. And I put that on the stereo and forget about it, right? That combined with Barry Jenkins on 1ZM, right, at night time, right, late, I think he was doing a 10 to midnight then, and 10 to midnight I could kind of have my radio on quiet enough that even though I was supposed to be sleeping, or I could just hit the cassette tape recorder, right, that I revered, my mono cassette tape recorder, and I could record it and listen to it the next day, right? Well, there you go, early podcasts, right? Okay. Right.
And this comes up a lot when you talk about media and stuff. It's kind of parts of what we touched on, and I touched on a lot of in this podcast, this topic. Like, there's something fucking incredible about where we are now with availability, but there's something beautiful about your sentiments on just that one guy on the radio that's got the goods. That sort of, there's something about that sparseness of content that I think really breeds this want and this kind of like, you know what I mean?
Well, to me, it's like I
wouldn't go back there, but I get it. Right, even though I'm a different generation to you.
The value of media is media. Yeah. Media in all sorts is the vehicle for ideas to get to people. Yeah. And that's where propaganda comes from. You control the ideas that you want to get to other people, but also it's where creativity comes from, right? And where choice comes from. When you have choice, you can choose what you like, and from that you can get influenced by it, and so on and so on. And so because of Barry Jenkins and because of my cousin coming back, you should listen to this, it's pretty cool, and me just being blown away by the first power chords on Holidays in the Sun and stuff like that, right? I decided and went with punk rock. It also fitted my 17-year-old screw the world attitude at the time. You're one
of the guys that also, coming back to there being 2 TV channels and etc. One of the people that saw Leiden on TV and
absolutely, yes,
you saw that. No, because Benny spoke about that when I talked to
Radio with Pictures would play the the videos for God Save the Queen, Pretty Vacant, The Damn New Rose, even they were pretty good, right? The Clash Tommy Gun is like one of the most amazing videos. I mean, it's a brilliant song. It's actually my ringtone at the moment on my American iPhone, right? Which is pretty crazy when you're sitting in. We have an open plan office, and someone calls you, and you just get this. And I kind of like have to drop everything and reach for my phone as fast as I can. Right?
Yeah.
But so obviously the ringtone works, right? Yeah. But so so it's all just like coming at you, and it's like that this is cool, right? Yeah. And when you dig deeper, it's like it's a reaction against the prog rocky 8-minute guitar solos with 10-minute drum solo type stuff, right?
How bloated rock had become.
Well, yeah, and I mean, my God, I saw the Foo Fighters on Saturday night, right?
I don't want to.
I'm sorry, but Dave, don't.
Thank you.
Every single song, they'd break it down in a breakdown and do, hey, Auckland, how you doing? Hey, is everybody out there wasted? Yeah. Is everyone cool in the rain? It's my God, he ruined everything.
I think he's a talent, but I agree. I think that band are total excess.
I have nothing. No. I have nothing against people like writing that style of music and it becoming commercial and then making money from it. I have nothing against them playing stadiums. What I have against them is doing this horrible, horrible stadium stuff that Kurt Cobain must be he must be rotating at high speed in his grave, right?
Don't forget as well, they have more than one song that sounds like the theme song to a 90s sitcom, so there's that as well.
Well, actually, I think that apparently, I listened to a lot of them,
right? Foo Fighters fans have left the podcast now.
Yes, well, no, because apparently, their songs are like, you just take one lyric and you repeat it over and over again, and then you put a few chords underneath it, and you get yourself a Foo Fighters song, and then you do an acoustic version, right? So you have two songs for the price of one, right? But no, it was like, Weezer did the talk to the crowd thing and all that.
I would love to have seen Weezer. Were they good? They were, man?
Yeah, and they were really good, right? Okay, cool. And I'm not a massive Weezer fan, but I really enjoyed it. Right? You know what I mean?
I like them. I think to me they're like a great. How do you put it? They're like a great coming back to American campus radio. I see them as a great kind of pop campus radio band.
Absolutely,
That's
how they got there.
Great pop hooks. Yep. But they're.
No, and so they were fine, and then I had a free ticket because my brother works in the industry and works very hard in it as well. But it allowed me to, I wanted to see what the production was like. But, seriously, and I was already planning on bailing out halfway to beat the traffic and that kind of stuff anyway, right? Because, it's not, they're not even in my top 100 of bands, or top 1,000 probably even. But I wanted to see the production and so on, because that's what I do for a living, right?
But also I think any band that has such a massive global name and brand, aside from production, I just want to see them out of curiosity to see what they do. I left less than halfway through a U2 concert that I got a free ticket to in Auckland, and I told a flatmate and lost the flat over it. So just be careful who you tell what.
Well, I mean, it's going public now, right? Yeah, right. But no, I'm not saying that Foo Fighters are horrible and they should be taken out and shot.
No, not at all. I think Grohl's very talented.
Right, but what they were doing was the kind of stadium rock that they should be going back for. I mean, they had 3 female backing singers. I don't see their music as being really needing 3 female backing singers.
He suddenly thinks he's in that Stones.
Exactly. Yeah, he's gone stadium rock, and
were they
it's
3
like
African American older gospel?
No, there was one of those, right? And then and two. I think one mixed race and one Caucasian and so on. But it's like it's like they've kind of lost the plot on that thing. And for me, it's like, if I look at that, I would love to become popular, famous, and so on with my music. But if I started doing that, I would ask. I actually texted or Facebook messaged my wife and said, if I ever do this, please kill me. Right,
with a photo or a video or something.
A little bit of video of them, doing the hey, how's it going? Everybody put their hands and get your lighters out, kind of stuff. And again, that's what was happening way back when punk rock started. Yeah, right. Yeah, and it's like, Well, anyway, enough of them. Right.
Well, I was thinking, holy crap, we've got over 40. I'm about third point on my list here. I think you're driving this. We're only at your school years. You were.
Well, you did say it was a chat, mate. Right?
Yeah, you did.
And I should have warned you that I can talk. I can talk till the cows come home.
I like it. I like it. I've had a long day. I need it to be driven. So your first foray into promoting was at high school, and when you got Hello Sailor in at lunchtime.
Yeah. I mean, that was like we were. There was a group of us, right, who were very much into our music. And
that's a big ticket band to get into a high school.
Well, no, Hello Sailor, and I think we had Citizen Band as well, possibly, right? They kind of approached us. I think somehow they approached the school because back in those days, bands like that would do the school circuit and they'd play at lunchtime in the assembly hall for all of these schools around around Auckland, excuse me, right? So it's not like we went out to get them, but when we got them, I'm sure there was teachers and so on that were doing okay, you guys need to come here and you should park here when you get here and you're going to load in at this time and blah blah blah. But they got us to do it. Plus, we were like the kids that were in charge of like the lighting team, right? So we had like.
Were you an AV nerd? Were you one of the AV nerds?
I wasn't an AV nerd because we weren't the nerds. We were the punk rockers. We were the cool guys.
Yeah.
Well. Yeah, I mean,
you're an AV skin.
I think for the senior dance, right, or whatever you call it, senior prom. You see how Americanized I am, right?
The ball,
even right? Okay, the ball, exactly right. I shaved all my hair off for that. Yeah. Right, I chopped it short, right, and I'd had long, kind of curlish hair, and that was the thing. It was like, why not, right? Now it's time to do that, right, and so that was the kind of connection there. And I was quite fascinated by the live music thing. And I was playing guitar at the time because I'd been playing piano from about age 5 or 6. And when I got to 14, I decided that piano was not going to attract the girls as much as guitars would, right? Okay.
Also, I imagine,
so I decided to start playing
piano
guitars.
tutors back then would have been quite it would have been very old, traditional piano.
Oh, absolutely,
lessons.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The tutor I had at the time, when I told her I was going to start playing guitar, nearly had a heart attack because she was such 93? A purist. Well, that too, yes, but she was about 93, right? Okay, no, actually, I think she was actually 157, right? Or at least as a 9-year-old, that's what it felt like, right? But she was horrified because the muscles in the fingers that you use for very good classical piano. Yeah. Are ruined by playing guitar. Yeah, because it's a different set of muscles, right? Okay, that you're using, and years of training, you're training your muscles, right? Right. I mean, that's another thing about playing for 30 years. I can get together with the no tag guys or the bank robbers guys and so on. I guess they play, but the no tag guys who don't play that often, right? And I can just. I'm used to playing the songs and just playing guitar all the time.
Muscle memory.
And so the muscle's all there, I can actually jump around like an idiot more. I'm not having to concentrate so much on what I'm playing because I've been doing it all the way through, you know what I mean? So, right? And to me, there's a lot to be said about, the presentation and so on of a band is near important to actually, playing well enough where you're not making a whole bunch of mistakes, right? Yeah. But the occasional bum note is not the end of the world versus having a good show, right? You just made me realise
something I'd never factored from a purely physical meat and bones point of view. When I look at musicians I consider incredible who can effortlessly shift from piano to guitar, I never even factored in the fact that the muscle formation on the fingers is a part of that amazing, the fact they can do both incredibly.
Yes,
there's people who can just jump between those instruments.
I can still play piano, but I'm not going to be immediately picking up a piano, getting behind a piano and playing like the. I
was going to say, can you play piano like the guy that jump on a piano in a bar and people?
No, I can't. Fucking hell, that's the thing. I can't do the knees up, Mother Brown. I can't do that great piano break in what's the other song? Something day.
The guy
Uncertain Smile is the name of the song, right?
Upstairs,
okay. Yeah, that's a great song.
Guy upstairs, but quite a bit younger than me. Really, they're a lovely couple. They've moved in, and it's. I think he might be learning instruments later in life, which is really great. But I was so glad after nearly 5 weeks when he finally got Stand By Me down and changed to something else. Because I got home every night.
I feel you.
Every morning.
Okay. I understand exactly what you're saying
humming
because
along. Look at the lyrics on
I have two bands that are in two different rehearsal studios, but one of the rehearsal studios I work at, I work for them once a month at their front desk, right? And the front desk is closest to the bigger stage, right, that costs more to rent, right? And unfortunately, a lot of times that's rented by the people who have money but no talent.
Yeah.
And I have to sit there for 3 hours listening to people murdering covers, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And smile nicely and not tell them that they should not give up their day jobs, right? But this is the thing. On a piano, I can't. You couldn't put some sheet music in front of me, or me even just immediately transpose it. But if it's a song and I hear and I've got a guitar, I can pretty much be playing that song within an hour.
Yeah, right.
Right, you know what I mean? So it's that kind of thing, it's when you get comfortable with it, you become, and there's no way I'm an amazing guitarist at all, right? But I'm proficient enough to be able to go out and perform, right? So
well, I mean, it's defined amazing across genres and styles and approaches to music, right? So you leave high school. And what is it? What do you get? Is there pressure from the parents to do something other than music? Are they supportive? And do you consider uni or a trade or?
No, yeah, I went to university. I was doing kind of sciences for school certificate and that kind of stuff, right? And then I decided I hated it. And
things were so compartmentalized in our school days, right?
True. And I decided that the world is going to be run by money.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do economics. So I did. Right. I built into economics.
You were a commerce guy.
I saw that the world is going to be controlled by money, right? And I wanted to, know how it worked, basically. And so I went off to Auckland University and signed up, and I'd got the regular high school certificate. So my fees back then, I think, were about $700 for the whole year, right? Well, no, in fact, it may even been
it would have been less than
$70 even, right?
It would have been a couple $100.
Yeah, but $70 was still a bit of money back then. But anyway, and then I went to about 3 lectures. I'd been up to Radio B before, and I started hanging out up there. And then I went to maybe another 3 more lectures. Never gave in any assignments. Didn't read any of the books, and spent 2 years in Radio B rather than 2 years going to.
So none of the courses or lecturers followed up to say, "Is this guy's not handing stuff in?"
Oh no! I mean, I got the occasional you didn't even have emails back then, right?
Yeah.
Right? And so I completely failed the first year, and I just reapplied for the same classes again, right? And there was, I was doing computer classes.
Throw another $80 into the wind.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Well, no, it's a good excuse to still be a student, be part of the Auckland Students Union Association, right? Yeah. And so I could do Radio B, and then spend another year doing Radio B, which was by that stage. We had become there was the gang of Andrews, as we were, right? Yeah. Because the station manager was Andrew Dickens.
Andrew Black, was that back then?
No, Andrew Black was like the 5th Andrew who came along later on. So yes, no, it was Andrew Dickens was the station manager. I was the assistant station manager. Andrew Hawthorne, who works in sports direction, I think it is now, right? Yeah, producing said cricket matches that we can't explain to the Americans. He was the music director, I think, and Andrew Topping was the program director. And Andrew Topping, I think, still works in radio as well, right? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So, in fact, I'm the only one who doesn't really work in media, right? I work in the devices that deliver the media.
Yeah.
Right. But so they've gone on to great careers and so on, right? But we had this group, and we were the ones that were kind of nurturing Radio B at the time.
Where are we? Early 80s?
Right? Yeah, absolutely, early 80s, right? I had been in a band called the Regulators, and they'd played a demo tape on Radio B, and that was kind of cool. And then around that time is when No Tag started as well, right? And but I basically, my day was hanging out at Radio B, going to one of the millions of pubs that are so close to Auckland University's campus, and hanging out and drinking with Radio B people, and doing more Radio B and doing music, and that was it, right? And consequently, I went to Auckland University and I graduated in radio.
You know what's funny about that? I say I went to Vic Uni and graduated in radio because of Active and all those experiences you just described, except that I finished the degree miraculously. But
I mean, after 2 years,
I wouldn't have even thought of going to broadcasting school because I don't think I even knew such a thing existed.
Right.
The family was always like, go to uni, so I went to uni.
Yeah.
It's funny, your intuitions follow your loves, and I ended up in the, very similar to B, even though Active moved years ago, it was up in the tiny little corner office of
I went up
the Student Union building.
I remember. I went up there one time. We went down
$1 million views of the city. You went to the graveyard for a clandestine.
No, we went to Wellington for a college radio conference.
Right.
So we were, and because it was Wellington, Active was the the point of hanging out and all that kind of stuff, right? But yeah, and so I was a bit of a slacker, and I was a musician, and so I didn't do any freaking schoolwork at all, right? I mean, admittedly, I must say this one, right? Okay, the first lecture I went to was a macroeconomics lecture, and the professor got up, and the first thing he said is, "Everything you're about to learn is all theory. None of it works in the real world." And I said to myself, "Well, then why am I doing this?"
You know what? That's brilliant. So you got an immense amount of things out of uni. One of them was critical thought at the
indeed.
First lecture.
Yes,
and the second one was that you discovered B, and arguably you wouldn't have if you hadn't have been there.
Right, and No Tag was starting to form, right? Okay, and it was only $160, and from there I knew some of the people that were doing the 89 FM, the first FM station, and so on, and so I kind of went up and kind of volunteer helped them.
Yeah,
and they liked the idea that there was this young guy who had blue hair, who was into helping out and so on, and then it ended up after they launched the station, and I think about 2 months into launch, they said, "Are you available to do the Midnight to Dawn show?" And I'm like, "I'm there," Right, they had much better equipment than Radio B. It's kind of like saying to me, would you like to play with 800 Marshalls on a very large stage instead of the one that you already have, right? Right,
or the practice amp.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that's still in the days of commercial radio. You actually being able to live craft a show, right? So you're actually playing the records as they go, because there's no, aside from carts and stuff, there's no. You're actually doing, because what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, you're pressing that there's no automation.
Yeah, so in the
there is automation. There is automation in the cartridges where there's tones.
There are no big stations in Auckland now, and probably most places in the world, where the DJ, if you want to call them that, or the announcer actually physically interacts with any of the music. It's just a button. So I think, I think that's a great thing that you might say, oh, it was
we had to play some records. Most of our stuff was carted. It was on carts,
but
right?
It's still you firing it all off and doing all the timing.
You're pressing to go and you're pressing the go time.
I think the timing of the radio is a huge thing.
Yes, yeah. No, and the thing is that you get this memory of it's crazy even now. After I was only on 89 FM for about 2 years or so, I think. Yeah. But even now, I can recognize a commercial song from that era, including all of the old classic rock from the previous 2 decades, right? I can recognize any one of those songs within about 5 seconds. Yeah. Right, of just the drum beat or the whatever, right? And then I can probably also tell you whether it fades out or if it's a hard finish.
And how long you've got to speak over the beginning before the vocals come in.
Exactly, almost, right? But it was a really good experience, right? I worked hard and we had a few changes of program directors, which then meant a few changes to, what we could and couldn't play, or what we were and weren't playing, right? And how fast the A rotate was, and and so on.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is,
but it was a really good job. I needed a job to pay money. I always talk too much.
You said in the email, like, I even did commercial radio, like it was a sin or whatever. But I think commercial radio was way less restrictive back then than it is now.
Oh, indeed. I mean, I can proudly say that I played Anarchy in the UK by the Sex Pistols on 89 FM on an evening show, right? I actually played it on November the 5th to celebrate Guy Fawkes, right? That there was an anarchist that entered Parliament, so Anarchy in the UK, right? And my program director, I had to present it to him, I had to sell it, but yeah, so he let me do it, right?
I like what you're doing there, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great idea.
So
I love it.
Yeah, so yeah, you're not going to... I don't think you're going to get Anarchy in the UK played even on Hauraki, probably, or The Rock, or whatever would be in that kind of genre at the moment.
So around this time, you know, something
Which,
you
and of
mentioned
course
a few
it's
times in the podcast
Yeah.
is, you know, you start... you have the first band, but then No Tag forms, so... that's around the same time, right? Early 80s? So you got
Yeah, it was
band.
early 80s, right? We had this weird... I mean, the way I see it is, you know, I got together with Mark Sullivan, who was in the Flicks, who wrote one of the best songs ever called "What a Great Country," right?
Yeah.
Okay, and we practiced religiously for ages at Progressive Studios, which was Terry King's place, right? Okay, and it was just him and I, and we, you know, had all of this music that we had. From England and everything that B was playing, and I did, like, you know, I was doing a punk show as well on B as well. I'll say B because then it's, if I say BFM it's wrong, but if I say Radio B, that's you know.
So it was Bosom and then B and then BFM.
Yeah, I was in way after the Bosom thing had been taken out, right? You know, so it was Radio B I was doing, which was AM, right? I never was there on the FM thing. But we were there when we got it to be able to go full time, right? Because the wonderful people at the Broadcasting Tribunal said to us, "Well, you realise you can apply for a 28-day licenses." Yes. "We realise you can apply for a 28-day license after your 28-day license."
Yeah.
Yes. "We realise you can just apply for a whole bunch of 28-day licenses that kick in immediately 1 nanosecond after the other one ends."
You found a helpful person in bureaucracy. That's
yes,
amazing.
I know. Yes, it was really good. It was really good. But yeah.
So back to this. Let's
the no tag thing,
let's
right,
drag
you
you
know.
back to the band. Okay,
Yes,
you've got
yes.
it. Good.
The no tag thing, right? You know, we had all this music that was inspiring us. We wanted to. I wanted to play that. Mark Sullivan wanted to play that. We needed a singer and a drummer, and we were lucky enough to find the Von Wadering brothers, who'd moved up from Wellington,
Yeah.
and they were looking to play, and we got it together, and we just kind of, through the influences that we had, started writing this music that was, you know, noisy, fast, and could be pigeonholed as, you know, punk rock, right? You know.
But then you further pigeonholed to Oi, which I wanted to talk about as well. So what's that about?
Well, people, I always find that this is an interesting one to explain, and this is my opinion. It's not like, you know, what really exists, but I'm pretty sure I'm close to right, and that is that the Oi and skinhead movement and so on, right, is the Oi movement was for where the people with short hair and boots and braces and so on wanted to get away from the National Front. They didn't want to have this, like, immediate thing that, you know, oh, you're Nazis. Skinheads are Nazis, right? And so they were more into the, like, you know, rock against racism thing and that kind of stuff, right?
So why physically did they keep their appearance the same if they were trying to so distance themselves from white supremacists?
Because the skinheads came from way back.
That's always really interested me.
Well, the skinheads came from way back in the like late 60s, early 70s.
Right.
So it was
the
just,
Nazi thing's
right.
like that's a wart on the original movement, or
Absolutely, absolutely,
right, yeah.
and this is the thing, and so you know, you've got that to start with, right? You've got the whole thing that people are generalizing, right? Okay, right? Oh, person's got short hair, he must be a white nationalist,
Yeah.
and he also wants to kill me. That's you know, it's like. It might be true, but it's not always true. And I think I described it once as saying that, like, you know, oh, that person's a hippie, so they're probably going to want me to take acid. They're going to spike my drink with acid because they're a hippie, right? It's just like, it's so wrong,
Yeah.
right? It's just generalizations that we live with in society that people have to get away from.
Yeah.
I mean, I suffer this generalization in San Francisco at the moment because I'm a techie
Yeah.
who lives in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And works down in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And I'm one of these horrible techies that's ruining San Francisco because I'm raising the rent prices in San Francisco
Whereas
because of supply demand,
you're
right?
so of the original San Fran spirit. Yeah,
Exactly. And I can turn around to most of these people making these accusations and say, you know what, pal, I've lived here longer than you.
Yeah.
Right, and you know, I think you know, here's
you've
my
lived,
music.
but how you've lived.
Exactly.
Yeah,
here's my
yeah,
music
yeah.
resume. Go F yourself, right? You know, right?
Yeah.
So again, it's that generalization, right? You know, right? And
it's something. I totally agree. It's something we all do, but it's something we all need to work on. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and so we ended up as No Tag because people did not understand this, and that generalization took them to, if they're an Oi band, they must be Nazi skinheads. And we took the Oi refrain out of our song No Tag.
Yeah.
We just didn't do it anymore, right?
You mean actually oi, oi, oing?
Yeah, the oi, oi, oi part of No Tag was taken out of that song because we didn't want people to think this, and it was more of a hassle to try and explain it to them, and even then they wouldn't accept it or get it because they've already been stuck in their brain with this generalization. So it was just easier for us to just pull it out, right?
So
you know what I mean? We were a punk band, but we played stuff that was of the, what do you want to call it, the Oi style of bands that were coming out of England at the time.
I'll get to that in a second.
Right?
I want to ask about that. But do you know much about the original skinhead movement? Because it's something I woefully don't know a lot about. So what was...
Not a whole bunch, but there's a great...
Where's it come out of the 60s?
There's a really great picture.
No, it's not mods.
No, it's more of a rockers thing, I think.
Rockers,
I don't know it that well. There's some very good documentation. I mean, some very good articles on it and everything. There's a great photo of Slade, and they're all... they've got shaved heads, they've got braces, and they've got their rolled-up jeans and their Dr. Martens on, right?
Because it's manifesting itself in a lot of places. It's a big part of ska, and it's really interesting. Well, no, I need to get on the internet.
Okay, the skinheads back then were very much into the ska stuff. Right, ska and reggae and everything else like that. Yeah, no, that's a definite... a connection, right, for sure, right? But, but I mean, things change and so on, but it's just that whole, generalization. And we were stuck with it, and we had to do something about it, and we, what we did was we dropped that Oi refrain. But we had to live with that all the way through, because everyone was like, and there was, let's speak of media, there was the Sunday Times back then, right? We got them to do an article or whatever, and this journalist came along, and she took us to the pub for a few beers, and she completely misquoted us. And so the Sunday Times, which was a horrible garbage rag back then anyway, right? Okay, wrote... I
think it was throughout its whole life.
Exactly. Wrote a pint and a punch-up, right? And basically quoted me as saying that every time I go and see a band, all I want is a pint and a punch-up.
Right.
And I never said that. Oh, God. Right.
And
we couldn't do anything about it. I went as far as threatening to sue them, and they're like, just bring it on. We've got lawyers bigger than you've got, right?
I find that really greasy, the going and sitting down and the beers are on me as the beginning part of that. That's like really... Well, for sure, but
the thing was that, we were almost talking about, what we're doing here, and, where we're trying to, keep up the punk thing because, the Scavengers and Proud Scums and so on had either moved to Australia or broken up or whatever. So we by default kind of became one of the punk bands in Auckland. We were very lucky. We kind of almost inherited a ready-made audience, right? But they just wanted some scandal. They wanted to put on in their horrible cheap rag something that was horrible, so they just went and did it, right? And it was, and we were just, oh my God. And they, those kind of things just put fuel on the fire of that generalization, and it's really hard to get out from there, right?
So we've got less than 10 minutes left, and we're at about 1983, and I still wanted to talk about the drum and bass and the running Imperial dub, and I don't know if we're going to get there, but I will say around 83, you the Holy Grail perhaps turn up in the form of the Dead Kennedys, and you get to support and
and that was.
And is there still a friendship with Jello? Or?
Oh yeah. His Guantanamo medicine practice down at the practice rooms that Skin Effect practice at,
right?
And so I see.
So he's still literally in your life.
Right. Cool. But that's an interesting thing, and that kind of goes with the generalizations as well. People didn't want to give us gigs because they thought that that people would smash the place up, and like the Rising Sun Tavern where we recorded the live album, they would have us every time because they knew that they would make money on the bar. Yeah. Right. We had the bar record at the Rising Sun all the time. We never got the door record, but we always had the bar record, right?
Yeah.
And so we actually, just by pure luck, we'd asked if we could play as the support for the Dead Kennedys because we assumed that we were the logical support, and we were told through word of mouth by the promoter that no, the Dead Kennedys had asked for non-punk bands to support them because they didn't want the crowd to be riled up before they played. So I just by pure chance happened to meet the promoter with a couple of the band on a Thursday night after I'd finished my shift at 89 FM, right? And I was going out for a bevy at some nightclub because that's how you had to drink after 11 back in those days, right? Okay. And I met them and I said, oh, yeah, it's a pity that you guys asked for it. And they're like, we asked for it? Are you kidding me? Right? So they actually went and pulled a few strings. We couldn't play the Friday night gig, but we ended up playing the Saturday night gig. Yeah. And we hadn't played for a while because we'd stopped playing because people were having fights. And we said, we're going to stop playing if you have fights. You're going to stop playing if you have fights. And they had a fight, so we said, fuck you, we'll stop playing. Right? Yeah. We're not kidding, Yeah. And so we hadn't played for about 3 months, but the guy who ran the PA at Main Street was coming in on that afternoon to test. So we basically did this 2-hour sound check, right? With full monitors, full everything and everything else like that, and then got up and did that gig, right? You know? And then that led to the backing vocals on Bedtime for Democracy. When we were on our way to England, we stopped off in San Francisco, and they were recording that song, and Jello's like, hey, would you guys like to, if you're not doing anything tonight,
saw that
right?
Night, ultimately.
Yes, he did. Yeah, right, okay. Put it this way. He even remembers the name of the skinhead guy that was causing trouble. Right, who he called?
Of all those gigs, of all those places in the world.
Yes, who he called? He's a smart man, but who he called out, and basically, and dedicated Nazi punks fuck off to him.
Really?
Right?
Is that a guy from Auckland that he dedicated that to?
No. Yeah, when they played here.
Yeah, I get it. No, he dedicated to someone from.
Yeah, he dedicated to the guy in the audience that he'd already pointed out, right, as being an idiot, right, and he even still remembers his name, right. So That's the kind of thing, right? But that's just how Jello is. But yeah, so we did that. We get over to England, blah, 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 England and so on. And I worked for Rough Trade because Harry had scored me a job there. Rough Trade Distribution, the independent distributor.
What were you doing for them?
I was just running the warehouse, right? And I slowly but surely kind of got more and more into the operations, and that's how I got transferred over to America, right?
Because they're responsible for shifting a lot of really interesting music around the world at that period, right? They're
absolutely,
right up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like the late, I started there in about 86 and I finished in about 1990, and we are getting into the fast version here, but
sorry, I didn't mean to. It is a podcast. We can talk about anything.
Right. No. I'm just saying. I'm racing up to right.
Yeah.
But, because it's interesting. It's interesting, right?
Yeah, it is.
That my musical journey has taken me to dance music and so on. But it's like and so there's this great indie music, and we had a great time, and we could put songs at number one in England, and hell yeah, we shipped a lot of stuff. I packed 1 million boxes while I was there. Yeah. Right. And it ended up that, Harry had moved over to America to be a salesperson over there, and I knew the CEO of the American thing and so on, and they needed someone to run their operations, so they tweaked it so I could come over, and in San Francisco was where they had their warehouse, and basically run their warehouse and so on, and their accounts department and all 90s. That kind of stuff. Yeah. This is about 1990, and then they went bankrupt, so here I was in the United States with a 10-year working visa, right?
Oh, wow, you got a 10-year visa?
Yeah, right. Okay, and it was a good visa as well. It was one of these ones where they actually used lawyers to say the job he's doing can't be done by an American, right? Yeah. And somehow they proved that, which is, I don't think it was really true, but, there is the point that I knew the whole operation. I knew,
I think it's true, in essence.
I knew the catalogue number for this rare Smith's 12-inch, right?
You're working for a boutique British distribution company. It makes sense.
Yeah. And so... but they went bankrupt, and I helped with the bankruptcy, and then I went out and did... I was like, what am I going to do? I'm here, right? And my girlfriend at the time, who became my wife, wonderful lady, Kathy, who was also in music.
Your current wife.
Yeah, current wife. Yeah, not actually only wife, but... I did a traditional marriage in London, so I could stay there longer than 2 years.
But a non-traditional. The real
marriage.
First wife. The real first wife.
The real first wife, right? And
you can open that door if you want. We're nearly there. Let some air in. It's about the sound.
Who cares? I'd rather have sound than I'll tough it out for a better podcast sound, right?
Yeah.
But so and she said, she had a flatmate that was touring and needed a guitar tech, and basically the question was, well, you know how to tune a guitar, right? Yeah. And you know how to fix a guitar? Yeah. Okay. We're flying you out to Boston.
Who was the band?
And the band at that time was.
Boston, sorry.
No, not Boston, the band, but that's where they flew me out to Chicago, and I'm
the band was Chicago?
And the band was not Chicago. No, either, right? Good point. Right, okay. Right,
turn that terrible joke around.
Godflesh. Godflesh was the band, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. So
but they were
band to
no. They were having trouble They were about to go out on tour as a support man for Skinny Puppy,
right.
And they were having trouble getting in on the visa. So we ended up in Chicago where the tour was supposed to start. They didn't get in, so we drove to Boston, right, to meet up with them if they did come in, and then. While I was there waiting for this visa stuff to go on, my very good friend Levi Tarkovsky, who's a New Zealander, he was doing front of house for My Bloody Valentine, and I met up, and he happened to be flying through Boston on his way to New York just to spend a couple of days there. So I took the subway to the airport, had a beer with him, told him all of my bad things, and he said, well, look, I'm coming over with My Bloody Valentine. We need someone to drive, and we need someone to do guitars. Now, at the time, I did not know it was My Bloody Valentine had this crazy guy, Kevin Shields, on guitar, but I said, yeah, sure, right? So we ended up, the whole Godflesh thing fell through, and we ended up driving back to San Francisco, and a week later, I flew out to Boston, and to pick up equipment and meet the band and do this whole. It was the Loveless tour of the USA.
Was it one of those tours that went for years, or
no? It was about a 5-week tour.
Yeah,
right. And I was Kevin Shields' guitar tech, and I didn't get killed, right, or fired, or
why is he? I don't know a lot.
He's notoriously. He's notorious.
What's the word? Volatile.
No, more. He's a perfectionist, and if I had handed him a guitar that wasn't tuned correctly, that would be it. You're fired. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so I did that, and I came back, and my wife said, "What are you going to do now?" And I was, I don't know. I kind of enjoyed that, and she said, "Well, I just read in was it Rock? What was it? There was a trade magazine, right? That the Chills are coming over." So I called up Martin and said, "Hey, if you need a roadie," and so I ended up going out with the Chills.
Right.
For
he knew you, or was just like
yeah, for the soft bomb tour, right? Okay, and then. And I did tune his lap steel one time wrongly.
I did read that today.
Yeah, right, okay. And so he had a bit of a laugh at my expense.
So basically, how long did the
teching
teching thing last? Right. A good few years?
About a year and a half, right? And then I kind of realised that, if I'm going to do my own music, you can't kind of like, be rehearsing with your own band for a month and then say, hey guys, I'm going away for a month and a half, keep up the momentum, right? And so I came back but I wanted to get back into music distribution, so I ended up with this small independent drum and bass distributor, basically, right?
Which in the state, because from memory, I read today that's like mid-late 90s, so drum and bass was even more esoteric in the States than the rest of the world at the time, right?
Yes.
Well, I mean, the rest of, like Europe and New Zealand and Aussie and stuff.
But very much a niche
what was
thing,
the label?
right?
What was the distributor?
Right, they were called Pulsonic Distribution, and they were basically importing...
Were they distributing all the British stuff at the time?
Yeah, they were importing records in and selling them, and the guy was like, would always hardly have any money, and he was a bit of an asshole, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
But through that, I did two things. One... the whole story of Green Recordings, which was my wife and I's label, right, where basically we saw these DJs who were producers who were creating what we thought were really good tracks. I'd fallen in love.
Drum and bass or different styles?
Drum and bass, right. At the time, I hated techno, I hated house, I hated, to me, dance music was disco and punk rock was put on this world to kill disco, right, right? And so, but then I went to this night one time and I just got blown away, by drum and bass, right? It was like, oh my God, this is the punk rock of dance music.
Yeah.
Right? This is nasty. This is it is computers, so, I've kind of got the thing against it because it's not guitars, but it's like, this is
Man
really...
who works for Apple.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. This is, well, back then, right? Traditionalist person.
Yeah.
But it was like, this is really like punk rock. But these kids didn't have a vehicle to put their stuff out, and my wife and I had all this experience. So we said, let's do it, and we did it. And we released like 13.
So essentially probably the first US drum and bass label.
Yeah, we weren't the first, but we were there in the early days, right? Okay. And we even had through a tie-up of the San Francisco crew, right? They got Caliber to give us a song, right?
Yeah.
So we even had an international drum and bass artist gave us
a
song,
good one too,
right? Yeah,
right. Yeah. And so I have to laugh here because I know the mentality, I know the process. So you fuck that dance music shit, and then you find it through drum and bass. I've heard this so many times before, and then you end up almost at the other end of the spectrum at quite a sort of deep house, label. You end up running. Was there ecstasy involved in this story, Andrew?
No, not at all. Not at all. If anything, right? It was like what happened there was
Imperial
that
Dub, Imperial Dub, which is a label. There are records from that label somewhere in there.
Yeah, some of them may have been, like the colours of them and the colours of the vinyl and things like that. It was my idea, right?
Yeah.
But it was
nice
like
purples.
It was basically, I was falling out with the guy that was running the record distributor, but Imperial Dub was getting bigger, and they needed someone to run their label, and I had the experience and so on.
But you must have got a taste for house music somewhere along the way.
Well, this was the thing: is I really still didn't like it, and it was this was the job at Imperial Dub is almost similar to the job at 89 FM.
Yeah.
It wasn't such a bad job.
Yeah.
Because I was still involved in the industry.
I appreciate your honesty. You never quite were turned on to it.
Right. But it wasn't. But then as I got into it and started listening to the product, and people started explaining to me that, there's all this handbag house that you've probably been listening to. This is deep house, right? And I listened a bit closer. I did closer listening is a really interesting exercise. And I used to do that on the radio a lot, right? There's a lot of pop songs that I couldn't even tell you the lyrics for, but I can tell you of the great snare hit about 3/4 of the way through the bridge, right? You know what I mean? Right, I'd listen to
production
the
production.
I'd listen to the production of it, and so I kind of became impressed with this deep house, and it also came with the the love and the plur, or the whatever plur means.
I don't think that was even a thing. It was very
unity,
but what
and
interested
whatever.
What interested me with that label, it's just funny having someone so close to the source. I'm not some nut diehard for it. There's a few in there, but what I was noticed at the time was it was this American deep house label that had some kind of slight, did have some dubby overtones, but that Imperial Dub and the logo and stuff had a really British Jamaican feel to the logo and stuff. It had quite a reggae branding for an American house music label.
I mean, one of the
which is quite a British way to brand.
One of the main music creators of that of the stuff that Imperial Dub put out, right, was a punk in his own right way back when,
right.
And and absolutely loved all his reggaes and everything else like that. But house music was what he was creating and so on. So so there's again, I didn't even know this until later, right? Yeah. But this is the thing. Music is music, and all music is good, right? Because Robbie Shakespeare said this one time: all music is good because you learn from the good and you learn from the bad,
absolutely.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
But I move towards music that's done extremely well, that has some intelligence to it, has good production, has good playing, has good stuff like that. And the genre doesn't really worry me.
Yeah.
All that happens is that if I have a choice, I'm going to listen to reggae before I listen to house.
Yeah.
If I don't have a choice, I'm not going to mind listening to house.
And speaking of things,
because I want music, and that's the thing, right? Right? That music is my drug.
And then
right?
Speaking of things that people have said, and I don't know, it certainly wasn't Robbie Shakespeare, but someone closer to me than that, I think said once, and it really stuck with me that writing off whole genres of music is akin to racism. Which I thought, wow, that's sort of
it's the same.
Quite deep because there's
the
always
same thing about the oi thing, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's like you generalize and you write it off and so on, and you're not really investigating it to make a valued decision on it, right? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can listen to house music, and for me it was, I still hate handbag house and heavy, fast house, and I'm really not a techno guy at all, right? But this deep house is pretty smooth, right? And has some very nice, comfy sounds and rhythms to it, similar to some nice dub reggae and so on. So
we got. That's been a pleasure. We're nearly at an hour and a half, which is groundbreaking. So what do you do at Apple?
I'm an IT tech. I'm basically a desktop support technician. I work in the I work for the marketing division. So there's a lot of film and audio and photo and just the stuff that you have to make for your adverts.
Right. And so these things are up forever, but still, I have a number of listeners that will listen to this when I chuck it up in the next day or two. So when's the show, man? We'll leave it there. When's the
Well, first of all, I apologise for anyone who's listened to this, right? But it was Lewis.
People from Apple have listened right through.
Well, hopefully not. Right?
Yeah.
No. But no, it's Lewis's fault.
Yeah.
He asked, right?
You asked, actually.
The show is punk. The show is punk it up.
Yeah.
Right. And it's King's Arms on Saturday, January the 17th. And we have Proud Scum, No Tag, Flash Device, Wolfpack from Australia, who a friend of mine. I know them well because we played with them in San Francisco with my punk band over there, Blank Spots. We also have Mishap coming up from Wellington, right? Who are a pretty good bunch of new kids doing it. We have the Rocket Jocks, who are pretty cool, and then we have the Bank Robbers are going to finish off the night with some Knees Up, Mother Brown punk covers. It'll be great.
Last thing, short answer.
Yeah.
No Gerald, who is singing for Flesh Device.
Correct. They're a 3-piece.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and they have operated as a 3-piece before.
It's been a pleasure.